We welcome you to tonight's meeting. It is 7 o'clock. Mayor Alt will not be here, so we will do our best to proceed in that manner, and I'm quite sure we'll have a very good meeting. So at this time, I'd like to invite you to stand for the pledge. Pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business according to our agenda is the approval of the minutes for January 21st, 2015.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried. We will now have the financial report. Is there a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, use the sign of aye.
Aye.
Any further discussion?
No.
Ayes have it, the motion is carried. Next, we will have the budget amendment 2015-007.
Yes, it is to recognize $800 in seized funds and the funding of a drug awareness video to be placed at the drug drop box here in Town Hall.
Would you repeat that again so that our audience can hear and so we can hear again?
Yes, it's to recognize $800 in the forfeiture of seized funds and the funding of a drug awareness video to be placed at the drug drop box here in Town Hall.
Is there any discussion on that from any board member? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, we accept budget amendment 2015-007.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
And sustained due to a relationship.
The motion is now carried. All those in favor, use the sign of aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried. We now have the town administrator's report. There are 3 items.
The first item I have is ordinance 1-215 that was introduced on the 21st of January and is presented tonight for adoption. This relates to chapter 10.12, which is the parking meter zone within the town of Elkton. And as introduced, this actually deletes parking meter zones at 2 locations. One initially would be the parking lot at 107 North Street. Currently it's a metered area, and that's being reduced, or eliminated actually. And also on South Street between Howard Street and Main Street, and on South Street between Main Street and High Street, those meters will also be reduced, or actually eliminated. So those 2 changes were made to this section of the code. I would present it for adoption tonight.
Is there any discussion from any of the board members?
For discussion, I would like to ask the board if we could table the parking meter zones because in the ordinance that was sent out to us, they had eliminated Main Street from the changing of the 2-hour to the 3-hour parking. We had discussed that at our workshop on January the 14th. So if we could table this and have that taken care of and vote on it at our next meeting. For the schedules?
Not for this one. This is actually eliminating the meters zone and the
Oh,
behind
okay.
107 North Street and South Street.
Okay,
That's all it does. It's not parking schedules.
all right.
So you withdraw that,
Withdraw for the second one.
yes.
Earl,
I have none.
No discussion.
a motion?
Make a motion, we accept ordinance 1-2015 for introduction.
No, this is
For adoption.
I'm sorry, adoption.
I'll second.
Or been properly moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, motion is carried.
I thought that's what you said, adopt, I'm sorry.
It's for the purpose of adoption.
The next ordinance I have is ordinance 2-215, which deals with the parking schedules, which I believe Commissioner Jablonski was just referencing. This particular ordinance actually changes a number of locations with respect to the time limits for parking. This was introduced at the last meeting and is on the 21st, and place here. Actually, on South Street, on both sides of South Street, the parking is extended to 3 hours between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. This is from East High Street to Howard Street. Additionally, the parking time limit on 107 North Street parking lot behind 107 North Street is extended to 3 hours between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. These were the changes that were made. These were only 2 changes that were made to the parking schedule. Now, I think Commissioner Jablonski has a recommendation. If we have a motion in a second.
Everything I said was,
We don't have a motion yet. Is there any discussion on that?
Just
That's-
the table.
that's the one to table.
Is there a motion?
Well, Mary Jo already made the motion.
To table it.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, use the sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion is carried that we table this until, when is the next date, the next meeting?
18.
The 18th, okay.
And by then, the other street will be, the main street will be added in there, and we can approve it then.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, the next item I have is a bid opening for the Walnut Hill Water Tower Rehabilitation Project. The Walnut Hill Water Tower was finished in 1997. It needs a overhaul, interior and exterior. Our engineer prepared the specifications, it was released at a pre-bid meeting. The bids were due January 30th. We received 6 bids, and we'll open the bids at this time. The first bid is from D&M Painting Corporation in Washington, Pennsylvania. That's it. D&M Painting Corporation bids $430,100 for all performance of all the work under the specifications for this project.
It's 430,000.
$430,100. The second bid is from Horizon Brothers of Powell, Michigan. Their bid is $875,000. $875,000. The next, Iron Painting, however you pronounce it, I-O-N, Painting Incorporated of Baltimore, Maryland. Their bid is $495,000. The next bid is K&K Painting of Baltimore. Their bid is $534,550. $534,550. Manola's Painting Inc. from Baltimore, Maryland. Their bid is $618,750. $618,750. And the last bid we have is from Menowan Inc. of York, Pennsylvania. And their bid is $526,000. $526,000. I would recommend the a tentative award for the D&M Painting as the low bidder. And I say tentative because our engineers will evaluate the bids and determine the qualifications of D&M Painting to perform the work.
So that low bidder amount again is what?
$430,100.
Okay.
As soon as they qualify the contractor, I'll come back with a recommendation to award to that company. That completes the bid for this project.
Hey, Lewis, who did the other towers? What company did the other towers?
K&K did the K&K did the Bell Hill Tower that we just completed, a 400,000 gallon tower. And Menowin, which was S&D Painting, S&D Painting then, I think they changed their name. They did the Thompson Estate standpipe. It's a 200,000 gallon standpipe. And I don't recall who did Blue Ball Tower. I'll be able to get back to you on that.
All right, the,
That was so many years ago.
in the contract, I had issue with whoever did, I think it was the bell tower, that the ladder wasn't in there and
They had to fabricate
the
it.
name and stuff like that. We had other money that we had to spend. All of this is included this time, right?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
We won't need a ladder because the ladder's in there, but the specifications for painting and all the other work, including the wire, is in this one.
Fair enough, thank you.
Does that complete your report?
That completes the items I had, yes.
Now we would have the reports from the commissioners, if they have any, starting with Mary Jo to my left. Would you want to present whatever you have to offer?
Yes, I have one thing. At a previous meeting, we discussed LED lights on Main Street. They would be brighter, safer, and the look of them. I did get finally back from American Energy. They have a light, a bulb that they would like us to try. And I contacted Delmarva, a representative, and they said that they can put it in. They'd like to put it at the corner of North and Main as a testing light to see how we like it, how bright it is. And if the board would like to continue moving forward with that, they will put it in for us and go
See how
from
it
there.
looks. Sure.
Do they have a date in which they will do this?
They have the bulb, we're waiting for the town meeting, and I actually was waiting for Delmarva also, and I talked to them yesterday.
Okay.
Good.
Okay? And that's all I have for tonight.
Earl?
I just wanted to comment on the film showing that Joe Piner showed on January the 31st. It was a pretty good showing. He ended up with about 45 to 50 people. A lot of good comments and reviews came from the filming. And it was something that he donated to the town of Elkton just because he was doing some production stuff out in New York and Baltimore and Delaware, and he thought since he's a native from here, he would bring it to the town of Elkton, and I wanted to commend him on a job well done. That's it.
Yes. With the amount of people here tonight, usually I have a couple chapters that I go through, but I'll make it short and sweet tonight. With the chapel, is Dan here yet?
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. Sorry, buddy. We'll hold that off because he's being held up. The train hasn't come up yet, so we'll hold that off until the next meeting and talk about it then. I do have a question going back to the checking account, the registry. I see that there's Driftwood Lawn Care, that they were doing a lot of grass and stuff like that. Did we actually put that out for bid?
We had a couple of selected bids on that one. They're significantly less than the other prices on that.
All right. And Michelle, could you put on the upcoming workshops, whatever the next availability is for talking about central purchasing?
You bet.
Thank you. And I know there's a lot of people here, and I have some stuff to say about that too, so we'll let them start. I'll jump in there. That's all I have.
So we're talking about coming to the next meeting with the discussion on the trees out to where you live?
No. There was a gentleman that, there was a code problem with, and DPW went out and trimmed trees, and there's an issue.
Okay.
But the gentleman that wanted to talk about it isn't here tonight,
Okay.
so I would rather him
Discuss it.
discuss it, start the discussion
I
than
understand.
anything else. It's on you.
Now is the time for the public to provide some opportunity into why you're here. Certainly, and we're grateful that you are here. It's always nice to see a full house. We do have a sign-up sheet. As you come in, you may or may not have seen that, but as we get started, I would like to call Stephen Jones to come forward, if you are here.
Yes, sir.
You want to state your name and your address, and if you like, you can sit down and you can address not only the board, but the audience that is here.
Stephen Matthew Jones, 235 Fawn Drive, Elkton, Maryland.
Fawn Drive, if you want to pull that mic up to you so we can hear. And the floor is yours.
Okay. The reason I'm here tonight is in regards to a recovery house opening in Elkton. It'll be the second of its kind. It's for drug and alcohol abuse, and I'm the one opening it. And I wanted to come here tonight with some supporters and possibly some opposers on that issue. And according to the Fair Housing Act, it basically says that recovering addicts have the right to live basically anywhere that a family has the right to live. And it's not a facility, it's a dwelling. And I went to the county and asked, if there was an occupancy number, and they gave me the number 8. They said that 8 unrelated people can live in a house.
You mean you went to the town?
No, sir, I went to the county.
Okay, the county has no zoning jurisdiction in the county, in the town. It would have to be the town, and 8's the right number.
Okay. All right. So I went through the proper steps, and we do need support. Although maybe not an approval or a yes, but we kind of need support. And anybody that's opposed is welcome to come see me. And there is some support here tonight from the health department as well. And we can answer questions. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. One thing I want to make clear is that being in charge of this house, this home, there will be a contract that every individual will sign before they move in. It's a men's house. Any drug or alcohol use on or off the property is immediate eviction. If they are somewhere past curfew, or they're somewhere where they didn't say they would be, that can result in immediate eviction. And there are also a few more things, such as, if they have company over the house and have sex in the house, that can result in immediate eviction. That will result in immediate eviction. So and I have this contract with me. I don't have enough copies for everyone, but anybody that wants to review it is welcome to afterwards. We can make some copies. I can get you one for sure. My associate, Chris, is here tonight. He has with him a few copies of our mission, our vision, and a brief summary of what we do and what we provide and what we believe. And I don't want to hold you guys up for any longer, but I just want to say that we're open for any questions.
So what is your mission?
It's one sentence. It's very brief. Help individuals, families, and communities to recover and rebuild. And just really quick, what that means to me is this town that I grew up in, that I used drugs in personally, and recovered from here as well, is in need of places like this, a lot of them. And there are other towns around here in Cecil County that are embracing this idea. They're seeing the people walking down the street at midnight, and they're not turning their heads anymore. They're facing the problem head on. Our neighbors, right, in this community have alcohol and drug problems. So we either extend a hand or we turn our heads until we end up where when we turn our heads, we see it over there too. And it's happened in a lot of cities where 20 years ago, you could walk down a street and it was a beautiful neighborhood. And people turned their heads for just long enough that those streets you can't walk down anymore. Unless you're a part of a gang or something of that nature. So, coming from somebody who made bad choices and finally decided to change his life, and that's me. This town needs it. So, that's all I have, unless you guys have some more questions.
I'm quite sure they have questions. I still have other facilities and dwellings. Do they also abide by contracts, or do you think this contract will allow you to provide management and enforcement of your intended facility?
Other facilities do have contracts.
Okay.
And every there's one working model. It's called an Oxford House. And we get our ideologies, a lot of them, from that model. Another working facility in this county is in Northeast, the Dexter House. There's 2 men's houses in Northeast so far. They have a contract. And one common denominator with all these contracts is that any drug use or alcohol use on or off the premises results in immediate eviction. And we will have drug tests. So.
What will be your procedure in attracting individuals to the house that you plan?
Okay, the procedure is as follows. The house is being furnished right now. We will get a walkthrough Friday at 1 p.m. from the Cecil County Health Department. And they're in touch with rehab facilities throughout the state, a few of them, a handful that they deal with. And there's actually a funding source that they use. So when an individual comes out of a rehab facility, they'll essentially fund them for 1 month. And I have 1 month to find them a good paying job, decent paying. We're not talking McDonald's, we're talking something, and I'm not nothing against that. It's just we find them something where they can start a bank account and get their life back. All right, and then that's one thing that I'll be helping them with. But the Cecil County Health Department helps them with that, and that's also referrals from them. And I've been working closely with them.
Thanks. Other questions?
Yes, I have a few. Is it considered a halfway house?
No.
It's not considered a halfway
No,
house?
sir.
So the length of stay for each man can be 30 days, a year? Is there a time where that person has to move on?
No.
Okay. And you said they're coming from rehab. Is it the 30-day stay, or is it from more of the outpatient, where they're there just to detox and then they're coming to you? Do you know?
No, it would be an inpatient
Okay.
rehab facility.
Okay. Like AF Whitsett Center or something
Yes,
like that?
absolutely. That would be our number one.
I'm familiar. Are you familiar with the 509 house in Perryville?
No.
Okay. I'm familiar with that one. It's a halfway house for the VA hospital, and the gentleman that runs it is extremely strict. So I'm very familiar with some of the rules and regulations, and I'm familiar with the rules of the Oxford House also. The curfew that you have for your gentleman, what is it?
It would be 10 p.m. on weeknights and 11 p.m. on weekends.
All right.
Now, there would be a little bit of flex in that, because some guys might have a job that might, they might work at night, and that might be their career, and I wouldn't hold them up from that.
Sure.
They can earn weekend passes. they can earn overnight passes. And that's an earned system, all right? So their first month there would be considered, if you're familiar with some of the recovery houses in the area, they have something called a blackout. And it's not really harsh on them, it's just the rules are stricter for the first 30 days, and then they lighten up. It gives them something to work towards.
But there's no end to it, so somebody could be there for 2 years.
Sure, it's their choice.
I'm just trying to figure out the rules, that's all. I'm
Okay,
just trying to figure
sure.
everything out.
No?
So if your rules are stringent from the outset, and then you say the rules are lightened up as you go along, could you give me an instance of what's enforceable and very stringent, and how you can lighten up on that?
Okay, so for the first 30 days, an individual would only be allowed to go to work and to an Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous meeting at night. And they would have to ask for basically special permission to meet up with their family and go out to dinner or anything like that. And they wouldn't have any overnight stays for that first 30 days. Now, after 30 days, we will have a house manager living in the house.
Right.
Okay, so after 30 days, basically it's review, sort of, so to speak.
Right.
He brings it to our attention, hey, I've been here 30 days, I think I've been doing pretty good, what do you guys think? And we say, hey, you've been doing great, you haven't broken any of the rules, so, if you'd like an overnight stay, schedule it and let us know. And that's an example of how it would work. Now, if somebody maybe came home a few minutes, 15 minutes past curfew, but maybe I verified that, I gave them a drug test, they're fine. It's a very, loose system. You have to just know what, who these people are, and I know who they are because we're the same.
Right.
So the lies and the dishonesty, I would sense it. Now, if somebody comes home late or whatever, and we decide, hey, you know what, we're adding 3 days to your blackout. That's a scenario of the first 30 days. And then after 60 days, then we review it again at 90 days. And then after 90 days, essentially, they'll be fitting in with the house pretty good. We think that they'll be broken in, working, and you can't put expectations on any one person. But most recovery houses work the same way. So,
Go ahead.
In your contract, well, first of all, you say you have a house manager, so you're not the house manager. You won't be staying there.
I use the word house manager, but the contract says leader, and I am a house leader.
So you will be there.
Myself, I won't be living there, but I will be there on a regular basis.
All right, and then in your contracts, which I hope all of us get, I'm assuming a requirement for them, especially in the beginning, would be a 90-90. Also, a sponsor within a certain amount of time, home group and activity in that home group, I'm assuming is in the contract, would it not be?
That's not going to be in the contract, no.
Fair enough.
But it's going to be, I will say this. If after 90 days, they haven't attended at least 60 meetings, right? Have a job and are building a network in a fellowship with the sponsor, then that person would most likely be up for some sort of review on what their progress is. Because people generally come to the house to get a little bit of structured progress in their life. And
Don't disagree with that.
And the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's their choice. They want to go to, they will have to go to meetings. So it's their choice where they want to go. But Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't have anything about 90-90, so it's a little bit different. So we'll go by an individual basis on that.
If this house was in my neighborhood, there would be certain concerns that I had. And one of the smaller of the concerns would be parking. If you say that there's 8 people, is that right, Louis? You're allowed to have 8 people plus a leader or you. You're talking potentially of somewhere between 6 and 9 cars. And I'm not familiar with where this house is. I know the vicinity. But how are you going to handle the parking, especially with and the reason I brought it up, because we have another parking issue in a different neighborhood that we have to talk about tonight. How is that going to be handled?
Okay, well, 90% of the people that come into the house won't have a vehicle. If you went to AF Whitsitt Center and asked anyone down there what kind of vehicle they drive, they would say they don't have one. It's people when they hit when they get to the point in their life where they need help, it's not many that have a tag. And now, they might have a vehicle, but I've seen this a lot too. It's not tagged. It's in the parents' backyard. You know, dad took it because you weren't making the payments. So, it's an individual basis. Now, my house leader, he does have a vehicle. Out back of the house, you could fit 3 cars easily. And then there's 2 out front. And that's 5 spots right there that are right there for the house. So, and it's, you know, it's not, we're not talking about parking on the grass or anything like that. I mean, we would handle it, but I don't think we would ever have that problem because.
Fair enough.
Okay.
That's all I have right now.
I have, go ahead.
I don't want to get into the legal part of it, but there's certain things that I really don't feel comfortable about. For one, I understand that you being a recovering user, your intent is good, looking for help and support for someone is great, but what's to say that you don't fulfill and commit for what you're doing and all of a sudden you pull back on what you're planning on doing as far as this halfway house or this house? What happens with the vision, the leadership that you want to do? All of a sudden it goes away and then someone else has to take over. That's number one. Number two, I didn't hear anyone say anything about a medical background or someone that is going to be in the house that is going to be looking over the medical aspect of the citizens that are going to be in the house. You're right now telling me that you're recovering, or you're a recovering addict, but now you've made yourself into, and don't take this disrespectfully, as a doctor or someone who's going to help someone else. And that, to me, is not the right leadership. You got to have somebody that has some kind of a backing, a medical backing, that states that this is where I have you on track now. 3 months from now, here's where I see you. What if you get in an argument with somebody, all of a sudden, you know, the outrage comes. I'm just using this as past experience with some other relatives and friends. The house that you plan on doing this, again, this is all a conversation because we as officials are not making a decision on this. We're listening to the facts. The facts that you're giving me is a house that you want to bring people in and recover, and the neighbors have a lot to say about that, and I know that's why a lot of them are here. So my point is, the medical staffing, you talk about the person that's going to be in charge of the house, we have no clue who this person is. We don't have no whether he's from the social service or whether he's been a part of a system years ago and helped recover. We have no clue who this person is. Again, I'm just going out, throwing the line out here. I have no facts other than what you just said about this house. To me, there's a lot of documentation that needs to be done before anybody could say, we allow something like this to trickle into the town of Elkton, and then no one has cars to drive, so that means they're going to be walking wherever. Again, this might sound like a negative, but it's a positive because we're trying to help put people in place, what you're doing, but they're doing it through a medical plan, not just someone saying, I used to do it, and not saying that you're not going to revert back. That hope God forbid you don't. That's my 2 cents on that.
Thank you. Now, okay. Situation A. A person walks into the health department and says, I have a problem with drugs or alcohol. The health department with the, I guess, medical, right, would you consider that they have the correct medical?
I don't know about correct medical staff and someone with some kind of a medical degree that's going to try to provide and help.
To place
Got him, yes.
that individual in the right place.
I think the gist of his question is, what medical provisions are you gonna have at the facility that you intend to have?
The only medical provisions that we have at the facility is the house manager locks up the medication in a closet, right? And gives it out daily. And it's, I want you guys to understand that there will be no medical staffing. This is a home for these guys. You know, this isn't an institution or a facility.
Can I ask the question
Go ahead.
differently? Say,
Okay.
you had mentioned the health department. What is the involvement of the health department?
Referrals was the
Referrals.
first.
Okay. And I have two other
Yes.
questions. Well, actually, I'm going to go to one question. How is this funded?
Okay, so the health department, as I said a little earlier, has a funding source.
So,
Right?
okay.
Actually, they have multiple.
Okay, so you are involved with the health department with funding and referrals?
They will fund an individual for 30 days. And it's my job to get that individual to be a productive member of society within that 30 days.
I understand.
Now, I can't, in the design of this house, I can't have anybody there that has any sort of severe medical issue, honestly. And that's the whole referral system from the experts, so to speak. It comes through the health department. This is a you know, if they refer someone to me, then that person, they would know, only has maybe an antidepressant that they take or something, and that's the extent of their medical problems. And while they're in the facility of the Whitsitt Center, I'm trying to get back on that question, they will see psychiatrists, doctors, and things like that. And when they come home, now, as I said, situation A. Situation A is this guy that has this drug problem goes to Whitsitt Center and then goes home to his parents. Maybe he's a young guy, you know, he goes home to his parents or his family's house, a relative. They don't have a medical staff there, right? So, or his other choice is he can come here, where the leader distributes his medication to him so he can't misuse it, where he has support. He has maybe a guy with a car that can give him a lift to the doctors to handle that medical issue that he has, you know? And it's the whole thing. Is the therapeutic, basically in the literature of Narcotics Anonymous, says the therapeutic value of one addict helping another. And that's what this is. That's what this is. This is one addict helping another. That's how we all stay sober. Anyone that does it, is we help each other. You know, and they'll help me just as much as I'll help them. That's the truth. And you know, when they're walking, they'll be sober. And then you'll see another guy 2 miles down the road, like I just saw on my way here, that's not. You know? And the thing is the pink elephant in the room is that there's a lot of homeless people around here. And what is that a result of? It's not lack of jobs. It's that they're alcoholics or drug addicts. That's the truth. And when I decided to get sober, when I had that spiritual awakening, I had nowhere to go. I was looking. I wanted to go to a recovery house. There was nothing around here at all 3 years ago.
I can say I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And I do know of other people that have tried to start these houses, and they wouldn't sit there. They wouldn't confront the people that have issues with it. So I do appreciate that.
Okay.
As far as the town goes, we don't have and cannot have a position on it. And that would be very easy for you not to be sitting where you are because of the federal government's involvement. I appreciate you answering my questions.
Thank you. I'm glad you guys asked and had me here. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Isn't there a Joanne, and I can't see the last name, 506 North Street in the, oh, it's Clark, I'm sorry, it's Joanne.
I'd like to be halfway around. Thank you, gentlemen, and Mary Jo for having me tonight. Young man, you certainly did present your case very well. I'm a nurse. I work with drug and alcohol and have for many years. I've lived in the same house for 57 years on North Street. I came home from work tonight. There's a flyer. It's my neighbor. I almost passed out. I said, what the heck is this? Is this the house you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I almost passed out.
We appreciate it if you can sit down so we can hear you. We can't do that right now, if you don't mind. Or pull the mic up so we can hear you. And you can scoot the chair around and see us both and talk to us both.
Well, at 80 years old, I almost passed out. I said, this is my neighbor. I can't believe this. Where I've lived for 57 years. So I get on the phone. I call Mrs. D'Azevedo. I said, Teresa, this is your house. She said, I know. I said, but it says the owner is Mark D'Azevedo. She said, Joanne, it's not Mark's house. It's my house. He rents it for me. So we get into all these questions. And I said, Teresa, we've been neighbors and friends, and our children grew up together for 60 years. I cannot imagine your son Mark putting a house in the community that she lives on the corner of the street, children going to school on the street, and I admire you for becoming a recovering addict. I really do. It's hard. I work with it all the time. It's hard. It's hard to work with people, and it's hard to be recovering. And I, like everyone else, saying, we need it, but we don't want it in our place. I came in and I asked when it was zoned. Now, you said you had federal, you had the, is this town or is it federal?
Well, the Fair
Fair
Housing Act says
Federal.
Federal.
federal
But he
law.
said he got permission from someone. And then I heard you say the town. Did he get permission from the town, Earl?
He asked a question to the county, I believe.
The
is what he
county, but
said,
is it
and
the
that's what
county or
Mr.
the
Farrar
town?
said.
Either.
What is it, the
town.
county?
A group home with 8 or less members, unrelated members, are permitted by right in that zone.
And
They
that's
don't have to have the permission of the town, it's the law.
It's
of the
okay.
town, right?
So, okay. Well, I'm so upset over this that, we have plenty of neighbors here, like I'm saying. I admire this young man. He has done all he can do to keep himself straight, and he wants to help everyone else. That's commendable, that's commendable. But I don't think he has all these ducks in the row about how these clients that are moving in with him are going to be treated and cared for. I really don't. I mean, you have to have a medical doctor. He's talking about the health department. Who did you talk to in the health department? Was it Sue? Who's the lady in the health department?
Ms. Clark, you have to address it to us because
Okay, who's the lady in the health department? I know so many of the people in the health department. I just want a name. Who in the health department have you spoken to?
I don't think he has to give a name, I mean,
But somebody in the health
right,
department.
he spoke to the health department,
Okay,
yes.
so somebody, who is going to call, are your patients going to be going to the clinics to get their daily medication? There's a lot of things missing. And I call an attorney, as like I said, I get home and I see this and I quickly call an attorney about a couple of things. Did Mark D'Azevedo, is he the one who rented this house to you, sir?
this is not an answering question segment. It's give us your feedback on this, Ms.
Okay,
Clark.
it's my
Because we don't want the people back and forth.
Okay,
arguing
well,
about
it's
things.
my understanding that this house at 506 Bow Street is going to be called a halfway house for men. Is that correct? Is that what this flyer says? Okay, that's where I have my information. Okay, and it also says that this halfway house is owned by Mark Dazabeta. This house is not owned by Mark Dazabeta. This house is owned by Teresa DePaula Dazabeta, who is Mark's mother.
The ownership is not a problem. We need to stick to the topic of the halfway house.
The topic is that since this is listed as the owner, something is wrong here, whoever printed this. And if Mrs. Dazabeta, who is the owner, chooses to withdraw this, then I don't know how the guy can put it in there. And another thing, this is very sentimental for me. I have known Mrs. Dazabeta for years. My boys grew up with her boys. And we ended up crying over this. She is so upset, and I'm so upset. My husband lies at Cherry Hill Cemetery next to her husband. I cannot imagine William Gerald Dazabeta Sr. wanting his son Mark to put a house down the street from his mother as being presented. And that's all I have to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you
Young
for
man,
coming.
I commend you for what
Thank you,
you're trying to do. Any other comments? You can have the floor.
Mr. Miller, or Willard Bryant, 204 Park Circle.
Good evening. My name is Willard Bryan. I live on Park Circle in Elkton Heights.
Yes.
You know, I go out for a walk just about every morning, and this is what I find laying on the street. That's how I found out about this. I think it's unfortunate that the town, maybe you have an obligation, or you think you don't have an obligation. The people of Elkton Heights should have known about this far, far long ago. I even understand that the house is already occupied. Is that correct?
We don't know.
We don't know.
This is
You don't
new to
know.
us as well.
That's a scary part. Nobody knows anything. But the federal government can issue monies to support these programs. These programs should not be in a residential area. Put them in a commercial building someplace. I didn't force the drugs or the alcohol down their throat, so consequently I shouldn't have to put up with the nonsense that goes along with having them there. And listening to the gentleman, he says that these people are recovering alcoholics and drug users. Does that mean they're still on methadone? So they're not really recovering, because methadone is just as deadly and long-term as the drugs they were using. Do they have other criminal records? You know, are they thieves? I think that the chief could probably attest to the fact that we've had numerous problems up in Elkton Heights. You know, unfortunately, several years back, maybe none of you, probably Mr. Givens was probably on the board at the time, but they opened up Elkton Heights for people that wanted to buy up properties and rent. Elkton has a reputation throughout the county. If you want to buy drugs, go to Elkton, and specifically go to Elkton Heights. Now you want to put a recovery house to pick up, you know, the problems that these people have, and they can go right down the street and buy out, you know, they can buy their drugs within a block of where they're living. You know, I hate to say this, but I'm not sympathetic to people that take stuff like that on their own. They've got themselves hooked on drugs. Nobody poured it down their throat. They chose that. I understand, and I lack a little bit of information because I found out so late in the day about this. But these people have a problem. I don't, you know, that's a fact. But why should we, in the town, in Elkton Heights specifically, have to put up with their problems? That house is within a block of an elementary school. And there's one even, you know, down the street, another 2 or 3 blocks, you've got another elementary school. There's a service road behind that building, that house. It's constantly traffic of people up and down that that access road. Now you're gonna throw 6, 7, 8 people in there with known drug problems or known alcohol problems. And we have to deal with it. Some of the older people in Elkton Heights, I'm sure they're quite upset about this, if they know about it. Very good possibility. You know, we would have had 3 times as many people here if they'd been notified. And if it's the federal government, unfortunately, I don't want to put the responsibility on you folks. You're our representatives. You didn't see this coming down from the federal government and you didn't do anything about it? You didn't find anything wrong with throwing these kind of places into a residential neighborhood? I find that appalling. I just think that, they say the fair housing thing. Well, Mr. Desveda, if he was any kind of a person, he would withdraw it. Or his mother, whoever owns the property. Unlike Mrs. Clark, I'm not sure who does own the property. But it's obviously, it doesn't belong in Elkton Heights. Our property values probably have already went down because of the reputation of being a place to buy drugs. Pretty soon, people will start moving out of Elkton Heights. And I don't know if that's what the town wants, but their little community is going to shrink because people are tired of this nonsense. You know? That's pretty much all I have to say. I just think that you as a board and the officials of this town, we need to stop this. And I don't care what means you have to do it. I think you need to do it. These people, like I said, I'm not sympathetic to them. Have they got a problem? Obviously. But it shouldn't be on our back, a burden of our residents in Elkton Heights. Okay, thank you.
Before you go,
Yes,
sir.
yes, your question.
Yes, sir. Questions and comments, and are you still sitting here? Because you brought up a good point. First of all, we didn't know about it because there's no requirement for anybody to say anything. Fortunately or unfortunately, our personal opinions don't matter.
Right.
So for us to know about it, according to the federal government, we don't need to know about it.
Yeah.
The point that you brought up about property values, when I did find out about it, I did call real estate agents today because I wanted to find out more about this and be educated, or at least try to educate myself on it. They are not allowed to say, nor do they even know half the time, that this type of establishment may be next door to you. Now, these are different agents saying that. I would assume, as far as any type of offenders, they would have to be registered immediately and/or not even welcomed into the house, and I don't know how that goes. But the gentleman's sitting here, so we can definitely talk to him. Unfortunately, again, sir, our personal opinions, we have to go by the laws that are set from people that are above us, and we can complain to them and try to change that. We'll definitely do whatever we want to do, and listen to the people that we represent from both sides of it, and try to make a conscious decision of what we should do. But the gentleman sitting here, I mean, any type of sex offenders or anybody else that has to be registered, are they welcome into that house?
No.
That's if they've been arrested for that offense before.
That is true, sir. That is true, sir.
And the other thing is, they talked about signing a contract. You're talking about people that have issues in their life. And you're going to say signing a contract is an ironclad method of believing everything they say? Obviously not. Some of those people probably have, and I shouldn't say this, but I will, they've stole and broken into houses and to support their habits.
Certainly.
Now we're going to bring 8 of them into the development, and
I don't have the luxury of
I know.
making that
I
decision
know.
or judgment. I'm sorry.
so anyhow,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Thanks for your comments. Gina Giltz.
Hello, I'm a resident at 504 Bush Street. I live at the house that's right next door, and I found out about this over the weekend while they were moving in. There was quite a few gentlemen out in my front yard, or in their front yard, moving things in. And I introduced myself, wanting to be a good neighbor. The lady that lived there prior was there almost 15 years, was a wonderful neighbor. She passed away. Mr. Decivator was renting a home. I knew that there was a for rent sign up, and we expected new neighbors, and I was glad to welcome them. I had asked them who was going to be living next door to me, and all these people, one young man about 20 years old, if that, raised his hand. And it struck me as a little strange that he would be able to afford a house that's a 4-bedroom home. Never thought anything more. Hour or two later, I went to walk my dog, and I saw a young man that I knew was bringing furniture. He said he was donating it, that it was going to be a halfway house. And I was shocked. A few minutes later, this gentleman walks up, and he said, yes, we were trying to keep it quiet. We just didn't want people to know right away till we got things all in order, or whatever it was that he thought that he had to do. It took me back, because I've lived there 15 years, and I thought that at least if you're a resident and a homeowner, that you'd have to be notified of something like this, especially in our little town. I love my neighborhood. I plan to grow old in that house. It makes me very uncomfortable, the thought of thinking that within 10 feet of my windows are going to be 8 men. This is a 4-bedroom house. This is not a very big house either. Now, my concern is not just the fact that it's going to be 4 men who are recovering addicts. I'm all for recovering addicts. I've dealt with addiction in my own family. I love them, I support them, and I'm very familiar with a halfway house that is Dexter House. My estranged husband now of 6 years has been in there. I know what goes on. During the night, they sneak out, they still do drugs. Drug addicts relapse. Yes, they want to get help, I understand that, but I believe that there's a much safer place for them to be than in the center of a community that has 4 schools within a very close area. Those children don't even ride buses, they walk. So when these gentlemen, when and if they do decide to relapse, we know from our own town, they had to pull the bushes out because they stashed their needles. They put their drugs in places. What happens when our kids cut through the yards and one of them finds a needle? I'm not saying when, I'm saying if. This is all the possibilities of things that can happen, and nobody's even come to us to tell us that this was going to happen. I'm still in shock, honestly. I can't believe that this has gotten past anybody in town. And I understand about the Fair Housing Act. But what about us as residents? Didn't we have a right to know about this? And aren't there other, I know Mr. Decivator has many properties. Doesn't he have a facility that's maybe not so close to all these schools, and we're in close proximity? Literally 10 feet is in between our houses. If I open my windows in the spring and I want to go to the store, I'm going to have to lock all my windows when I leave. I have a daughter that lives at home, a beautiful young woman. Do I have to be concerned for her safety? I mean, there's a lot more than just letting these guys in. And from what I understand, it's also about the federal monies. He's not even going to live there. Who's going to police them? They're going to police themselves and hand out their own medications? This is just absurd. I don't think that this has been thought through for us, for our community, and I am for recovery. I am for helping people, and I think that there's a place where we could do this where it would be much safer than there. And that's my concern, is the safety. I have elderly neighbors in their 90s on both other sides of me. I have 2-3 doors down, I have another elderly person. I mean, we have a lot of elderly people that live in our community. It's a quiet, nice little place to live. I can't imagine having 8 adult men who are recovering addicts. My husband that I've been estranged with is a recovering addict. I'm speaking from experience. I know what they do. I know what kind of lifestyles they live. Most of them do come with prior records. The criminal history. Are there going to be background checks? Are we going to allow just anybody in? I mean, how is this going to work? Is it going to be a revolving door every 6 months, every 3 months? And who's going to be the one to administer the drug test? The guy who's the recovering addict too? I'm sorry, I'm very passionate about this because this is hitting very close to home for me. I live there. I have a grandson that I have all the time. I'm concerned for him. I had him in the yard today. Am I going to be worried about him falling on a syringe, or if somebody's hiding their drugs in the yard? It's really shocking that our town would allow this to happen without first creating a forum that we could all discuss this as adults and say, okay, what's going to happen here? And he's not even going to live there, and there's federal monies. Each individual that's in the home is going to have to pay rent, and it's granted for them. So it's about the money, I think, personally. And if Mr. Decivator has other houses, couldn't he put them in a more safer, secure area? Maybe not even in town, just a little outside of town. Those are my questions. And my question is, I understand that there's absolutely nothing that you can do for us. Is that true?
That is correct. John,
That's-
am I
that's-
wrong on that?
Thank you.
I don't want to sugarcoat it. I mean,
No, I'm not. There are some of you that did not sign up. I know you're from the Bow Street area, and I will allow you to entertain your thoughts if you have any right now. Just come forward, sit down, give your name, your address, and try to make your discussion minimal. Are there any others? Please come. Oh, does he want to talk first? Go ahead.
hey, John, slide the, if you would, so everybody can hear you.
The council is getting ready to talk to you before you come and speak.
Thank you. Is this working okay? All right. I get the sense that there is a perception that this matter would come before this board for approval. It does not. It does not. You may use your own ESPN and ascertain what you think the votes may be if it did come before this board, but it does not come before this board for approval. Mr. George correctly stated earlier, if you heard him and it clicked in your brain, it is within the current zoning that a facility of this type with up to 8 unrelated persons has the use within that zoned area as a matter of right. This board does not have any authority on that issue. This does not come before them for a vote. This is not here as a proposal tonight. I think the board became aware that there were people that were going to be here tonight to express their thoughts, express their concerns, which everyone has a right to do, and we're going to hear you tonight if you'd like to be heard. This gentleman was asked to come and make some statements to help understand and help you understand what is going on. I think that's probably the best way to leave it. A lot of you have expressed, several of you that have spoken thus far have expressed questions. These are not questions that these poor people know the answers to. There was no need for them to have this presentation made. When I say the presentation, there was no application process. There was no process that would have come before them for a vote of any kind. There is not and there will not be a vote of approval or disapproval. Ma'am, I don't know if I can answer your question, but
Yeah, you can. I
I
have a
don't
question.
know that I will, but I'll,
I have two. He was asked to come?
I don't know. I think,
You said he was asked to come.
I did say that, but I stand corrected, he was not.
But you just said something that's very appalled to me. It should have clicked in our brain. What kind of a statement is that for a professional person to make to a group of people?
Well, and I'm
Clicked in our
sorry,
brain. No, that's appalling.
I'm sorry that it may have come across to you that way. Let me explain myself.
No.
I gave you the opportunity to ask me a question. And
My brain doesn't click.
my brain sometimes clicks when I hear something that I go, aha. But sometimes if you're not alert to it, my brain doesn't click. And I come back later and go, oh, that. If I was aware of the significance of that statement, it would have clicked in my brain. And that's really all I meant. And certainly if I gave offense, it wasn't my intention to do so. This meant that Lewis made that statement. I'm not sure that he spoke loudly enough, and I'm not sure everybody may have heard it and understood that what he was conveying is that this is a use as a matter of right that does not come before this board for approval or disapproval.
Mr. Downs, you're an attorney.
Yes.
We as homeowners, well, what rights do we have then as taxpayers and homeowners to change the laws? The laws need to be changed? I mean, what is it, where do we stand? If this is absolutely, nothing can be done, what do you, as an attorney, what do you suggest that we do?
I suggest you see your own attorney.
I have.
Okay, I mean, I am here, I'm the town attorney. I am not here to give general legal advice to everybody as to their particular circumstances.
Are you paid by
You get-
taxpayers?
I'm paid by the town to represent the
So
town.
aren't you to represent us then?
I can't represent everybody here.
No.
I'm not.
Are you voted
Hold
in?
on.
Are you, okay, then I think everybody needs to take
If we're gonna allow,
that.
if we're gonna allow the federal government to make decisions about our neighborhoods, then I hate to say this, folks, but you don't need it. That lawyer over there that represents the town, he's not needed either.
Not representing us.
That's why we put you up there.
Obviously, at this point, he's made a statement. We will not have a vote up here. The young man who is heading the project, it's an opportunity for you to at least listen to him or ask him questions or to let him know how you feel. This is where we are now. Are there any others that still want to come and talk so we can hear and he can hear? Please come forward, your name.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Turk, and I am from Cecil County, and I am a recovering person. I'm not a sex offender.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, it has to be to us.
I'm not a sex offender. I've been clean for 25 years. I had the disease of addiction, and through treatment and intervention, I've been clean for 25 years. I'm a mother of 4 children. I've lived in Cecil County all my life. Relapse does sometimes happen, but we do get better. A drug addict doesn't ask your permission to move next door to you. A heroin addict and a person who does pills or methadone, they don't ask your permission when they move next to you. Here you have an opportunity to bring recovery into our community, to support the people in our community who are trying to get well. These are the safe people you want living next to you. Not the people in the woods that somebody else said we're turning away from. These are our people that deserve a place in our community with our support to get well. These are parents. They're children. And I'm sorry if your experience with your ex-husband has made you bitter, but we are neighbors. I'm sorry to say that, but I just got called a sex offender, to be feared in our community. I'm a recovering person. I have good recovering friends. I make good money. I pay taxes. I have health insurance. Yes, it is good for me. I deserve to be treated like a human being.
So what is your point? You said a lot of things. Please come on with what you're saying.
Okay, that we don't have to fear recovery, that we can embrace it, that we can welcome them into our communities and be a part of our community versus the alternative. And thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Deborah Arnold. I live at 505 Bow Street, right across from the house, and I have a question for you. We've talked a lot about that this is a residential area that we live in. We are all residents. It's a residential neighborhood. But I hear you talk about this house as a facility, and several of you have mentioned it's going to be a facility. So how is a facility meshing in with a residence? It seems to me that somehow it changes from residence to facility, which to me means an entirely different thing. So I don't know what kind of impact that has with the federal housing, but it just seems, I agree with what everyone else has said regarding our neighborhood, and to find out about it so suddenly, and to think that we are going to have a parking issue. I was so glad you raised that. It is usually there are 2 spots in front of each home, and just a few behind it, if at all. I would think there'd be some kind of zoning issues on how many parking spaces can be taken up. But again, is this a facility? Some type of a business? Or is it a
I have to
residence?
tell you, the town doesn't characterize this as a facility. It's a group home. Group homes with 8 or less persons are permitted in all residential zones by right. So there is not a solution to this that you can go to the board about, have them change it. If they do, they would be discriminating. That's why the federal law prohibits discrimination against people.
Well, I still think it's a completely incorrect placement. I think that the town should take a look at this. We do have just a block away an elementary school, playgrounds, fields, and we have residents, children, right across the street from this home, just 2 houses up. So maybe there isn't anything that you feel you can do, but I think it deserves many more looks.
I can tell you that when I found out about it, when all of us found out about it, there was a plethora of emails going around, and Fair Housing Act, all of a sudden, I'm investigating that, and I know that all of us were investigating that, and I'm making phone calls to real estate agents, and I'm making phone calls down to the VA hospital, and all over the place to find out exactly what our position is allowed to be. And again, fortunately or unfortunately, we don't have a position. That the only person that we can reach out to would be at the federal level, would be our federal representatives that we vote in. And that's who we would have to talk to first. The county can't do anything about it. The town can't do anything about it because it is set by them. Now, I'm not saying that all of us collectively or individually aren't going to reach out to those people, but as a community, as individuals, you can also have the opportunity to reach out to your representative and complain about this and find out more about it and such. Again, my personal opinion, unfortunately, doesn't matter here where I sit. And I have no yay or nay against it. I'm not for it. I'm not against it. I have to follow the law, as we all do have to follow the law. And I'm sure that's disheartening, because I've sat there too, talking to some of these people saying, I don't like this, I want you to do something about it, and they were saying similar things back to me. So I know it's disheartening that you can't have something done tonight about it. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sure you will be hearing from the residents in that area as things unfold.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good.
Sure, thanks.
Can I say something?
No, he's up.
Sorry.
Hello, good evening. My name is James Hutchinson. I live at 505 North Street. This particular residence is directly in my backyard. My children are 6 and 3 and attend the Immaculate Conception School, an elementary school. I have a lot of concerns about this, as my wife and I have invested a lot in the area, in our home. This is where we plan to raise our children and our family, and we're thinking twice about whether or not this is the right place to stay, quite frankly. I appreciate everybody speaking tonight. I don't want to repeat anything that was said. It sounds like we have no opportunity to enforce anything from your position. You can't help us, although you have helped us as listening to us, so thank you for that. So my question, the only question that remains that nobody asked is, as a public community here, there's no law against us reaching out directly to the landlord to try to influence. Am I understanding that correctly? We can reach out as a public community to the landlord and the homeowner and try to influence.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Sir?
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Name?
Hi, my name's Pat, and I'm also a person in recovery. I don't share as much clean time as Jen does, but I have been in recovery for 2 years now. And I started my process of recovery in an Oxford house. And I just kind of want to reassure some of the things I've been hearing here. They were strict on the rules. You couldn't get methadone and move into this house. You had to take urine tests, pass them in order to stay there. And if you failed any rules, you were evicted from the house. And like I said, I've been in recovery for 2 years now. And judging by the overdose rates and the crime rates, there's still an outstanding drug problem in Cecil County. And like the gentleman said earlier, Cecil County is a place where people go to get their drugs at the moment. But doing like what Steve's trying to do right now, maybe is a way we could push that the reputation of coming here to get drugs. How about we have a reputation to come here to get clean? And that's the only way we're going to be able to get that reputation, is by opening facilities, houses like this. And it baffles me when I'm hearing people say that we don't want 8 recovering addicts living next door to us, but yeah, it's okay that there's still an outstanding drug problem in our neighborhood where, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I bought drugs on Booth Street before. You're okay with someone coming here to buy drugs, driving past the middle school high, but you're not okay with someone coming here to try to do something about their problem. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. You know, it all starts with baby steps, and this is a baby step we're taking to fix our problem. And, you know, the only way we're going to do it is through the support of community. And, you know, alienating us somewhere else isn't going to make Cecil County better. The only way to make it better is, like, you know, addicts out there see people that were once addicts recovering. And that's the best way to do it, from on the front lines. I live in Turnquist. Turnquist is not the best area. But I'm still in recovery, and I'm still doing what I have to do daily. And I stay clean. And, you know, that's all I had to say. I just wanted to put my opinion out there.
Thank you.
Are there any other want to discuss this before we move on to the next? Yes, ma'am.
Do I like to say something? Mr. Gagan?
Yes, you will get an opportunity, sir.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Casino. I live on Park Avenue. The house in question is the street right behind me and right around the block. I'm not going to go and talk about the same things that everybody else has talked about, but I want to touch on a couple of things. Allowing a halfway house on Bow Street would be importing crime and drugs into our neighborhood. This is not the appropriate area for such a place, and to allow it would take away our livelihood as a community and our personal freedoms. No longer would we feel safe in our homes. No longer would we feel safe about our children playing outside. No longer would we feel safe about our personal properties, and it will destroy this community, and families will move out. No longer will the Heights be a desired family-oriented community with nearby schools. Along with importing crimes and drugs, Bow Street would have to deal with the increased traffic flow. Before the halfway doors opened, the zoning codes for parking should have been considered. The small 4-bedroom house is set on a street with small lots. The homes are closely set together, and this lot doesn't have adequate off-street parking for a house of 8 men, plus provide the parking traffic for their meetings or visiting family and friends. This parking problem alone will adversely impact on the neighborhood and qualify as a public nuisance under zoning codes Title 9, Chapter 9-20. Complaints will be filed. Thank you.
Mr. Gibbons, I guess I've said enough, but just one question, as my neighbor here addressed. The bottom line, as I see it, is to go through the Dazavedas to see if they choose to change their agreement and withdraw, if Mrs. Dazaveda chooses to do that. Is that my brain is still synapsing, I've got it going good. My medical term. Is that our only outlet, sir?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to get up before the morning.
I know you did right. DJ Slagger, Buttonwood, are you? Oh, I'm sorry, Ron, before she comes.
Yeah, I just want to, I'm Ron Morgan from Douglas Street. What's going on with the government?
Ron, no.
The government, what, they to the point. I'm sorry? Talk to us.
Talk to us and stay to the point.
Thank you, sir. Well, this is the point.
You're wild.
The federal government has funded this, is that correct?
No, it's not funded. They've created the rule.
I'm sorry?
They've created the rule.
They created the rule.
Yes,
Well,
yes, sir.
it's our fault because we put them there. Okay? It's our fault. It's who we vote for, or we trust knows issues like this, and if it isn't up to us to question before it comes about, you know, and now it's hindsight. You understand? Sure. See? So we put, it's our fault. We put them in office, the congressmen and all that, all the way up to Obama, President Obama. So it's our fault. So why put it on the town when the town's just doing what they're supposed to do? They can't override the government. If they initiated it, we voted for them. So who's to blame? You put the blame on you. I'm guilty myself. So what I'm saying is this, in the future, when there's something comes, now we know these issues, and instead of coming and not disrupting, but creating a problem with the town, who's not liable in any way, it's basically our fault. I love this country. I mean, I love it here. I was in the military, I did everything but get shot, and that's because I kept down. But, folks, it's our fault. We need to investigate before we vote again exactly with issues of this nature, or any other issue when it comes to the government, the federal government. That's all I got to say.
Thanks, Ron.
DJ Slatter, where is he? Yeah. Well, sit over to the side. We got someone else coming, if you don't mind. Just stay there while you're up there.
Ed Ginder, 98 Hunter Street. I'm a resident of the Heights, have been for years. I happen to serve on the board of directors for the Haven House, and I understand the problems that they have. And this is not a lily white situation. They will have problems up in that neighborhood. I suggest that the residents start a letter writing campaign, a phone calling campaign. I'm for this type of facility, but not in a residential zone up there, an established neighborhood. There's too much going on in there now. You can tell where the slumlords are renting houses. They're turning to drug houses. There's been numerous raids up there as far as heroin addicts selling, so we don't need this type of exposure. There is a need for it, absolutely. There are people out there who really want to turn their lives around and are seeking help, and unfortunately the government doesn't supply it. And they send them to 5-day rehab or months rehab. These people are hooked on heroin. They need at least 90 days of intensified rehab, and there's nothing available. So it's not the right place in Elkton Heights. Move it somewhere where it can have less exposure and out of the residential area. And also, is the town going to be responsible to do an inspection on the house as far as making sure it meets fire codes, residential codes, building codes?
No, we don't do that on any house in the Elkton Heights. We don't go up and look in people's houses for that.
We're not
It's a home like any other home.
I'm just raising that question because basically you are changing the use.
It's not changing use. It's
Well, I know that.
permitted
I know that.
Permitted by right.
I know it's permitted by right, but it's not a family situation. It's,
Unrelated people can
Yes.
live in a house.
I
There's
know.
no law
All right,
against
I know,
that.
Louis, okay.
It's called a boarding house.
Elkton Heights is not the place for it. There is a need for it, though.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Well, look, we get you, and then we get the buttons with it. We do that in order. Well, yes.
Just one thing. Our town administrator made a comment a few minutes ago about discrimination. And I'm not a person to holler discrimination, but what about the other 99% that are being ignored? You've got one house, I don't know how many houses in Elkton Heights, probably 300 or better, and we're the ones that are suffering. And the 1% won, they won. Why? That's nonsense. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Now it's your turn.
DJ Slagger. You have to follow that.
Hi, my name is DJ Slager. I live at 301 Buttonwood. And I've been talking to other longtime residents in Buttonwood, and we had a couple of issues that we wanted to bring to light. While we definitely appreciate what the city has done with respect to giving us some extra parking and extra space and upkeep, I thought it might be a little helpful if I went back through to tell you how this situation came to pass. In 1992, when it was originally built, the original sales contracts all stated that each of the units would have 2 designated parking spaces for exclusive use, okay? Along with that, there's a piece of property that's just to the east of our subdivision between us and Redner's that was also part of this parcel. That piece of property was supposed to have a community center for the area, a picnic area, a playground, and secured satellite parking for recreational vehicles. So if you look at all that back in 1992, that was a pretty appealing deal, which is why a lot of people started moving in there. By the time the builders left, about around 94, the homeowners association came in. Now again, they still designated 2 parking spaces for each unit. Both of the 2 versions of the homeowners association failed. And they failed because they couldn't collect the dues. No one wants to get into a contest with their neighbors, you know, overpaying the dues. It became a difficult issue. There were legal actions. Well, one neighbor was suing another neighbor, and it got so difficult that they just disbanded the homeowners association. What they really needed, in a lot of our opinion, was an outside management firm to handle this so that you're not, you know, sitting out having a nice tea with your neighbor one day and suing them the next day because they're doing something. So that went to pass, and then we kind of went around on our own for a few years. And then in 2008 is when the city of Elkton took over that area. That's right. Now, initially, there was still 2 parking spaces per unit, designated parking. We had some snow removal problems in the transition because we couldn't get the city into the cul-de-sacs of the subdivision because they said, that's your parking spaces, that's your responsibility, the cul-de-sac needs to be plowed. Now, you know, that's just an example to show you that what the city considered those parking spaces, okay? Then in 2011, they came out with a memorandum and took a survey and said, we are not letting you assign parking spaces any longer. Okay, even though this was the same 2 parking spaces we've had for the last 22 years. But they said, no designated parking, we don't want to do that anymore. Didn't give us a specific reason for it, but that was the ruling. Since that's happened, it's created a multitude of problems. Adding more parking isn't going to solve the current issue. We have people who cannot have access to their own homes. I'm going to give you an example. I have an elderly parent living with me in her mid-90s. Okay? I went to come home and found there was a truck parked directly in front of my house, and there was 1 space way down, which is fine, I took that space. But the truck had backed in, and because of the walkway, the truck was all the way over into my personal walkway up to my house. It was snowing. I had soft concrete, and my mother is in a situation where she either has to be in a walker or a wheelchair all the time. I had to go to a neighbor who was doing some construction, put a piece of plywood down on the grass over the snow so that I could wheel her in to get her into my house. Now, there's a multitude of cars in the area, and the majority of those cars are not the owners or the residents. They're visitors and people who are coming and going with, you know, what business, I don't know. But we're seeing a lot of traffic. Another problem that's been created is because owners can't park in their parking space or park in front of their homes. You know, you find people who have to park in the fire lane. You've got to get kids in the house. I'm not going to walk 3 buildings over and 2 blocks to bring my groceries in. I mean, that, you know, for someone who's lived there 22 years, that to me is an unreasonable request. The fire lane parking, we have people, and I will honestly say, that are just plain too lazy to take an open spot. which the police drive through all the time, and they will attest to the fact that they'll be parking in the fire lane and there'll be open spots to park. The problem now is not just visitors parking in that fire lane, but residents have got to park there because they've got no place else to park. We just recently got a brand new car. I do not want to leave my car 3 buildings over. I'm sorry, it's a personal thing. I don't want to do it. I don't think any of you would want to do that. We've had situations where we've had the paramedics come in and had to weave around cars parked in the fire lane.
Yeah.
And if you report it, I will say the police will come out right away and give someone a ticket. But there have been repercussions for people that do report it. We've had cars broken into, we have cars keyed, we've had tires. People are getting very emotional over an issue like parking. Wintertime, you get out there, and at my age, you shovel a parking space, you don't want to come back and have someone else sit there, be sitting in there. There are some additional parking, and like I said, we do appreciate that. But the bigger issue is that you have people that live there. We've always had a designated parking space, and up until recently, till they took that away, there were no problems. Now you have, one neighbor fighting with another. I've had to wake up my next door neighbor at 4 o'clock in the morning to ask him to move his car so that we can move our car out past cars in the fire lane to get to work on time. I shouldn't have to do that. I mean, I've lived there over 20 years, and there are a lot of other residents like myself who've lived there that long. Unfortunately, because it's become such a difficult situation, it's a nice area. We've got access to a lot of things. It's a convenient area to live in, but a lot of owners don't want to fight the traffic issue. So as a result, we're getting more and more renters, and unfortunately, I hate to say that not every renter is as considerate and respectful of their property as you would be of your own home. I don't know why they took away the designated parking, but up until the point that it was gone, we did not have these issues. I know there are visitors, and I know that there have been some discussion about provisions for visitors' permits, for people who have more than 2 vehicles, which there are. But at least if these are designated and you've got some sort of control over it, you know who's coming and going, you know what cars belong there and what cars don't belong there. When I first moved in there, it was the nicest, quietest neighborhood you could find. I mean, it was absolutely gorgeous. I was still active duty at the time, and I had no problems, being TDY and worrying about my house. Now I worry slightly more about my house because of all the constant traffic that seems to be coming in and out. But I worry more. Tonight when I go home, I could have to walk over 4 or 5 buildings just to get to my house. And I don't think I should have to do that. And I'm not alone. So I don't know why the designated parking was taken away, but if there's something, whatever we need to do, I know that some of the residents have written letters. I know we've sent a petition in. I know I've called. Like I said, we've made contact. But obviously this is a better forum to bring it to your attention so that there's a relatively easy solution. I think that if owners at least know when they come home at night they can park in front of their house or reasonably close to their house or on their property, it would make the whole parking situation a whole lot easier. I don't appreciate someone parking directly at the end of my walkway and then, unloading a bunch of junk from the car or dripping oil all over. This is a parking space which about 9 years ago, during the interim, during the time in which we didn't have something and the town had not taken away designated parking, I had a problem with my parking space, and it had a huge dip in it. And I called the city and I said, you know, what can be done about that? And they said, it's your parking space, it's part of your property, it's your responsibility. So I paid to have it fixed. I don't know how we can go from having this as a responsibility or even as a privilege and then have it taken away, you know, when there's ample parking.
I know that you've said that a couple times, and I know that a lot of us can answer that question. I was on the board when the HOA went away from that community.
Right.
Then you guys had those parking spaces, but once the town took over it, the town then became a public parking area. So we can't designate your address back to you when it becomes a parking area through the town now. You understand what I'm saying? First of all, it's like parking downtown here now. Yeah, it's a taxpayer, you can park any place you want because you're a taxpayer. Now this becomes an open space for taxpayers to park in your parking lot because the town now owns that property. Because we call ourselves helping out because we heard time after time, people coming in asking for help, support, lights. The roads weren't being plowed. We couldn't plow because of the parking issue in there. They could not get the plows through there. And finally we said the only way we can do that is the town, since you don't have HOA, the town would then have to take over this property and then have to maintain the sidewalks, I mean the plowing and everything. And then people wanted their park spaces back. But when you start to do that now, I know I would look to Lewis to give better clarity on this because now it becomes a legal thing because if we give you a parking space and say this is yours and then not the person next door to, then their code, we're not following our codes and we're not following our laws. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes. What happens with like apartment complexes that have designated parking?
What do we do with
Some are privately owned.
What do we do with Turnquest? Is it Turnquest?
Yeah,
Turnquest is by permit.
and that was
But
something.
is
And
it
it's a
public?
special purpose parking area where permits are issued. It's the only one that has.
Yes, and we did not discuss that, the
We're gonna
special
discuss
parking
that, too.
permits. When we discussed all the parking, that was something that was left out. So we do still need to discuss that, whether we do want to allow special permit parking or not allow it.
Which I know is on the, I'm sorry.
But I do want to say one thing, and this is nothing really against the parking, but in your story, as I was listening, you had mentioned your mother and being handicapped. Do you have a handicap sticker? Because
Yes.
if you do, you can come to the town and get a spot.
Actually, the motor
Yeah,
vehicle.
motor vehicle
Motor
department.
vehicle will give you your spot. And that's, I'm just wondering, because I heard that and I felt bad with you.
No, I appreciate that, and I understand that you can you can have a designated handicap spot, but it is not specifically for any individual. And there happen to be 8 individuals in our cul-de-sac with handicap stickers. So I would be worse off by having a huge handicap van parked that I would have to, work around to get in my house. We have a lot of seniors, and we have several people whose parents are now residing with them. And these are people who've lived there since the beginning. So
We had some, sorry DJ, we had a month ago, Mr. Hawkins and a few other people from the 500 block were in here and talking about parking spots and building parking spots, and Dan looked into eliminating an island and creating more parking spots and such, and we're all for it, and one of our concerns was what you're bringing up, that just because we create more parking spots, it doesn't eliminate the true problem of you having to park right over there and then walk to your house. I can tell you that next workshop, right? It's on the next workshop that we're discussing Buttonwoods. I'm also interested in an HOA in Buttonwoods. And there, I think that would, getting somebody that's a professional involved in handling all of the issues. This way it takes the residents out of the equation. and puts things in more uniform.
We're not overlooking your concerns, though. It's just that, like, some of the meetings that before you come in, we've heard a lot of it, but yet we've tried to deal with it. I mean, dealt with it, and we try to still deal with it. And just like DJ said, we're still trying to find out what is the right tweaking for it. We talked about some things going on over Turnquest, like that's a big issue, and people come in, why can't we do this? Why? Some of them don't want that, but we're trying to help as much as we can. We're not just turning our back on it.
And there was at the meeting, they're referring to when other people came in to speak, a representative here from a local property management company that I believe went out and talked to some of the people in Buttonwood at that time.
Yeah, you really have issues out there, I'm gonna tell you, because there's a guy named Cliff Wilmot. As you pull into Buttonwood, he's the house to the right, and he's said it, and he still maintains that there are issues out there, and it just multiplies and multiplies. It has multiplied even though we provided additional spaces, and I was on the board when Earl was there, when the HOA out there dissolved itself, and the town took over, and you had many problems then, and we try to resolve as many as we can, but there are issues. And going back to what Mary Jo was saying, there was a lady in the 100 block who had a handicap, but she was given the special exception for parking. But fortunately for her, she's the only one at that particular residence. But there could have been others, as you're talking about, and it would take away even your opportunity. I appreciate what you're saying, being able to park in front of your home and have designated numbers there, but it just hasn't happened, when we took over. And I believe maybe 3 months ago, there were some people out in 100 and 200 block going back, putting numbers back down without really any legal authority to do that. So there are issues out there, and hopefully we can get those resolved best as we can.
Do you talk to a lot of people in that community?
Fair enough.
Do the majority of them, do the majority of them want designated parking?
Yes.
Then
I
I would encourage,
that's-
because the thing is, I don't live there, and I do know you, and you've complained about this, and I know other people that's complained about it to me, especially when I was running for election. And it's something, if that's going to take care of it, then I'm sure the board would do something like that, but we definitely need to hear from everybody out there, the majority out there, and especially on the HOA issue, and I don't know how we proceed with that. Do you send a letter? We can get the property management company, we can get them involved to help us, but in the interim, I know next week I would definitely be in favor of a permitted parking type of situation. And police chief, does that actually help as far as the officers knowing who's supposed to be there, who's not supposed to be there? Does it actually cut down on crime because now you know who's supposed to be there, who's not?
No, I don't necessarily think it cuts down on crime, but it helps to some extent with knowing which cars are supposed to be there, who's parking where. But you're still going to have you need overflow parking. I'm not sure if there's overflow parking out there.
You're going to have your 3
We're
cars.
running into
for
similar
one family.
situations in Turnquist where there's permanent parking. You
Right.
assume, and from time to time we still get complaints.
All right, and have we hired a parking?
No, we're in the process.
Fair enough. All right, thank you.
Okay, well, like I said,
You don't get a designated space.
Say that again?
You don't get a designated space.
Oh, is that right?
You just get a permit to park in that neighborhood.
So the only way that you would get a designated space is if you created an HOA?
became private property. But under what you were saying about the permit, that would at least eliminate people that are non-residents, correct?
Correct.
That would help to some extent. So who in the city can I send my bill to for fixing my parking space?
Louis George.
Okay. I will do that. All right, and when is this, what is this workshop? Where does it take place?
Next Wednesday at 4 o'clock right here.
In here?
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate the history you brought. and sticking with it all these years, because I know I was actually on the board at that time too, and they did not want to be an HOA anymore. And it's, you know, it's a tough thing to juggle. Half the people don't want to pay the dues, they don't want it.
Right.
The other half does, and it's...
People don't want to pay for something they think they can get for free, and you get what you pay for.
You're right.
So, thank you very much
Thank
for
you
your
for
time.
coming in.
Thank you.
Is there any other that would like to speak before we dismiss?
Yeah, Bob Lynn, 307 Buttonwood. What do we have to do for a permit, the workshop?
Have seen.
The workshop?
Well, no,
Is
the
that
workshop,
how it passes? I mean,
at a workshop, we would discuss everything that's going on with Buttonwoods. We would talk openly about it. We'd have some feedback from whoever's here, but we try to formulate a game plan based upon the feedback that we're getting from the residents of Buttonwood. You know, how we could go to task. We have to pay attention to legal to see what happens there, and we'll also look at a long-term game plan of what is for the health and well-being of not just Buttonwood, but the town of Elkton. So it's more of an open type of forum of discussion.
so in all, there's 36 apartments, 72 parking spots. That's what we have in ours, right?
What is it again you have?
36 apartments or townhomes and 72 parking spots. That's 2 per unit. Now, if you have a third vehicle, I don't bring my work vehicle home. You know, it's two spots per unit. If you have guests, they have to park in the overflow. There's overflow at the beginning of the development. I've had a parking ticket, parking in fire lane. I'm not gonna park my truck out on the street full with tools. You got to be crazy. That's just ridiculous.
So you'd be in favor of an HOA?
I'd be in favor of whatever. I mean, I need to park close to my house. So if I hear so I at least can hear my alarm being broken into. You know, and it's, like you said, it's the math. I guess it's a legal thing, but the math is there. You know, 36, 72, two spots. You have guests, park down the end of the street. I've had quite a few guests. I tell them, do not park in any parking spots. Park out on the street. It's that simple. I just don't understand the whole thing. I'm not a politician and all that other stuff, and I don't know all the rules. But, I mean, somebody was in my spot the other day, I was damn near half tempted to hook up to them and pull them out. But I figured I'd get in a little bit of trouble with that.
That's right.
But, I mean, you know, I have to park in the fire thing, and I have a pretty large truck. It's not the one that blocked you, by the way. But, you know, it's a fairly new truck. I got, you know, the development can be rough at times. I know that, moving in there. But, I mean, I guess I don't understand the whole thing here, all the rules. So I just want to be heard.
Fair enough.
You know.
And you know, there's some things we can't control, certainly when you got spots and you have people with the attitudes that they have today who don't give a hoot. Then you have homes that have beyond the number of cars, 4 or 5 cars there, and they just think that they're privileged to park wherever. You got rentals now where you think there's 1 or 2 people, they have other people to come in and live in their homes, they gotta find a place to park, and people just are inconsiderate.
Right. Well, the last month it's gotten real crowded. I mean, it's been extremely crowded the last month. And I mean, we haven't had too much of a problem getting in the spot that we usually have, but I come home from work at 4 in the morning, or 3, 4 in the morning, and I don't have a spot anywhere.
Gee.
So now I'm getting threatened to be, well, not threatened, but I'm gonna get ticketed, and to be honest with you, I just have to get ticketed, because my truck's worth more than that ticket. But I don't think it's right that neighbor across the way has 4 vehicles there.
Do you ever see an instance where a neighbor will put a cone or something, or
No,
you don't have that?
No, we don't
don't roll that way then.
Oh,
I
no.
thanks for the
City.
suggestion.
No, no.
Trash can or something. I appreciate it. But, no, I mean, that's really all I got. And I you know.
Thank you. Next Wednesday at 4 o'clock will be the
I'll be
beginning.
going in at work, but I might try to, like right now, I'm on my 3-hour lunch break. But I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Next Wednesday.
Motion for dismissal.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, you got it.
Don't say where you
Don't say where you live, Kelly. I live, well, unfortunately, I'm married to this guy, Bobby. So I have a question. So when I come home from work and all of the parking spots are full and the overflow parking spot, where am I supposed to park? Honestly, where am I supposed to park? Can I just pull my car up in the front yard? Because that's the only place I'm not getting a ticket.
We can't advise you to park illegally. We can't do that.
I understand that, but I have no choice. I mean, unfortunately,
Rhetorical.
I'm on a revolving door with the people in the Elkton Police Department know me because I come in every week to pay my $15 parking ticket because I have nowhere to park. I have 2 kids. When I go grocery shopping or come home, I can't park on Route 40. We pay $1,000 a month to live where we live. Some other people that are parking in those spots don't pay anything. So I don't understand why they're entitled to a spot when I'm not. So, I don't know, just my concern. I want to voice my opinion.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Can I ask you just one personal question, not speaking for other people that live there? Can you buy property from the city? Can I buy my parking space from the city? Can I rent it from the city? You're looking for income, you're getting it, you're getting it through all the parking tickets, but can I rent a space in front of my home from the city?
I don't believe there's any ordinance or code, is there, Lewis?
I don't bar that possibility, but we have no provision under code to do that right now. Doesn't mean that you couldn't.
So I need to study the code?
But that's the purpose of the workshop, to look at.
Yeah.
We're gonna look at ideas. And I wanted to say, I feel real bad because I know you mean well. You come up here taking up for your husband. And like you did, because he said, don't you tell him where I live. But anyway, no, but all jokes aside, my grandkids went out to daycare and I was out there constantly every day. So I understand. But the thing is, I listened at the history that the young lady gave from way back in 1994 when people only had 1 and 2 living in one house. Then they got 2 kids, 3 kids, it's all driving. They got 4, and then all of a sudden, I don't know how long y'all been living in Elkton. All your life. So you know what I'm going to get at. Even though we have people that's been living there 20 and 30 years, you have the ones with 2 and 3 years with 4 and 5 cars. And that's what's creating a little problem right now. The overflow issue, the disrespect for people's property. So hopefully the that's pretty good, Earl. Workshop will be able to identify a lot of the issues that we need to try to focus on and come up with some kind of a game plan. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but you're going to satisfy probably 50%, and the other 50 you're going to have them hollering at you. And I hope I want to say that day, I think I'm going to work overtime at Gore. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'll be here. So, but I'm just saying on a serious note, I hope we can come up with some kind of a plan that can help at least cater to 90% of the issue right there. That's
8:55, we are dismissed.
Thank you for coming.